at least mom will be listening.
So if you bring up Counter Stallions, we're just not going to listen to you.
Number one is number one.
1,000 miles away from me.
Hello and welcome to the Faith Sports Leadership Podcast, where we talk about three things: faith, sports, and leadership. We're real creative with the name here. My name's Ryan. I'm one of your hosts, joined as always by my brother and co-host, Drew Lutz. Drew, how are you doing today down in rainy Sarasota, Florida?
Doing good, getting ready for this hurricane coming, but all is good.
Awesome. Well, today we've been blessed with some incredible guests leading up to this episode, and we are blessed with a guest that Drew and I have both really enjoyed, but also hated at times too, because we both had to play against him. He is a native of Warsaw, Indiana, where he was an Indiana All-Star as a basketball player, won a lot of games there, then went on to play a college career that is one for the history books at Indiana Wesleyan University, where he was a national champion. He was a two-time NAIA Player of the Year, four-time NAIA All-American, four-time Crossroads League Player of the Year, went on to play professionally overseas in Lithuania and the Czech Republic, and is now a part of the NBA system, where he spent some time in the Summer League with the Lakers and Bronny James and JJ Redick, and the G League with the Pacers organization, and throughout the NBA. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to introduce our guest, Kyle Mangas. Kyle, how are you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. Just excited to be on here today. Talk to some fellow shooters from Northern Indiana who, like you guys said, played against you guys. I mean, Penn and Warsaw, and then Bethel and IWU. So, it's fun to be on here today and just, talk about a little bit of everything.
Yeah, man, it's absolute. When Drew told me that we have you as a guest, it was one of those. Still hearing your name, my skin kind of crawls, because you were a freshman and a sophomore my junior and senior year of college, and we were genuinely afraid to play you because of how good you were, man. And so it's an honor. I'll say this: playing against you for those 2 years, I hated guarding you. But it was one of those things. Anytime the whistle blew, if I was on the floor, you would help me up. You would tell me, you were a dog. You would talk some trash. Don't get me wrong, and you would back it up to play. But it was one of those, you hated playing against him because it was hard to hate you because you were so genuine, so nice, such hard worker. So, man, it's fun to have you on the podcast. Yeah,
I appreciate that. That's nice of you to say. And I mean, it was always a battle versus you guys. Whether we played you home or went up there to Mishawaka, we knew it was going to be a battle versus Bethel. I mean, shooters everywhere, tough, that type of thing. So it was always fun to compete against you guys.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you come from a rich family history of just some hoopers and some athletes. And so it's fun to have you on here. The way today's podcast is going to work is just like any other podcast. We're going to break it down into three sections. First section, we're going to be talking about faith. Second, sports. Third, leadership. In this first section, as we talk about faith, we understand that not everyone is on the same faith journey that we are on. And so if you are someone that would just rather fast forward 5 minutes or so, then go ahead and fast forward. I would encourage you, though, sometimes hearing some different perspective, especially from someone as wise as Kyle or as interesting as Drew, it might help shift your perspective and just gain some different knowledge that way. And so we're going to be entering into the faith section. And this is not a sponsor. We don't have sponsors yet, at least. But we just wanted to give a shout out to our friend over at Prove God Right. It's a new merch brand that's available now. Go to provegodright.com. It's our friend Ben, who was on our episode number 4. Just launched a brand, and he has some merch, and a really cool thing he's doing on Instagram. He always talks about he didn't want to prove people wrong. He just wants to prove God right. And so go check him out, provegodright.com. Go check him out on Instagram at provegodright. That is what our faith section is somewhat brought to you by. And so as we dive in, we're going to be reading a couple of verses in the book of Psalms, and Psalm 23, verses 1 through 4, and then we're going to discuss really quickly. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That was Psalm 23, verses 1 through 4. And as we start out this discussion, Drew, I'll turn it over to you. What are some takeaways? What are some thoughts as you read through that passage?
Yeah, I love this verse, and I remember I would read it before bed sometimes just to kind of give me peace, knowing that the Lord is my shepherd, and he gives us rest and gives us that peace. But also, like with sports, it would give me this kind of quiet confidence of like, no matter what happens, like even when bad things are happening in a game or even life, like God's walking through it with me and he's helping guide me through whatever is going on. So.
Yeah, that's good. Kyle, what are some thoughts you have here from this verse?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a real encouraging verse, a real comforting verse. God is so powerful, and it's important that we fear him, but I think it's so important too that we remember just how much he can comfort us. I mean, like Drew said, when we're dealing with adversity, whether it's in sports or in job, with our job or with our relationships, it's important to remember that God is always near us and, is going to provide strength and peace and comfort. So just the overall, encouraging verse.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to enter into the sports section. To launch us, we're going to be talking about Indiana high school basketball. And so before we dive into where we went to school and the history behind that, I'd love to hear, Drew, starting with you. What are your thoughts when you hear Indiana high school basketball? What initially comes to mind? When I was living in North Carolina, I'll just tell you guys, when I was living in North Carolina and I said I played high school basketball in Indiana, everyone thought that our shorts were really short. We played our games in a cornfield, and it was just exactly like the movie Hoosiers every single Friday night and Saturday night. Drew, what are your thoughts when you think of Indiana high school basketball?
Yeah, there's nothing quite like it. In 49 other states, it's just basketball, but Indiana, it's different, man. I used to have this argument when I was at Incarnate Word with all those Texas boys talking about how Texas is the superior basketball state, but it wasn't even an argument. Indiana, just there's something different about it. It's a fun feeling for sure playing in those games.
Absolutely. Kyle, when you think of Indiana high school basketball, what comes to mind, man?
Yeah, I would say, huge crowds, passionate communities. Like, there's nothing like going to your high school gym on a Friday night. We were both players, but like growing up, going to your gym, on a Friday night after school and just, watching those guys and just rooting them on. And like so many people just love it. And you don't get that a lot of other places, just the support and, just seeing what a team can provide for a community, I think is pretty special. And like Drew said, I would go to college and have arguments, with my teammates from Ohio and like Michigan. And there's no comparison. Come on, like Indiana basketball. So, you think of fundamentals and Hoosiers and just the history and tradition. And it just means more here, I would say.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. It's just, whenever I think of Indiana, it's just smart players making the right plays, people that grew up, going to games on Friday nights with their dad and their grandpa and all those people just watching players. I remember for me growing up around the Penn High School, watching guys like Tommy Kurth and Jeff Ladig and players like that were just went on to be good college players too. But they were incredible high school basketball players. And speaking of that, Kyle, you played at one of the most historic high school basketball programs in the state in Warsaw. So what was it like growing up in that community and then stepping into the role of being the star player for the Warsaw Tigers?
Yeah, growing up in Warsaw is kind of exactly like I just put it. It's a huge basketball town. People love it. Played for Coach Doug Ogle, who for many, many years was under your guys' coach, Al Rhodes, who's just an absolute legend at Warsaw and coached teams to state finals and had Mr. Basketballs and that type of thing. So there's a lot of history in the town of Warsaw for sure. And when you put on that jersey, it means a lot, going out there and representing your school and just the fans and people in your town. So I'll always remember those years for sure. And a lot of memories, playing at Northside Gym in Elkhart. It's one of my favorite gyms ever. Love that gym. And I had some deep playoff runs. So great teams and just some overall awesome memories playing there at Warsaw.
Yeah, that's great. Warsaw, Drew and I both playing at Penn High School. For those of you listening that don't know Indiana, that's okay. This is just some Indiana high school basketball boys kind of reminiscing. But I remember in summer ball, and I remember it might have been at Indiana Wesleyan's Super Hoops camp or at Bethel or something like that. We would play Warsaw, and it was just a battle of the power layup teams. Like our warm-ups would be so fundamentally sound. We'd have power layups going, nice
up and unders.
Yeah, up and unders, exactly. But man, those games were battles. And so, Drew, for someone like you, who has not only played Indiana high school basketball, but then went on to go play down in Texas, now you're coaching down in Florida, thinking back to your Penn days and playing against teams like Warsaw and Kyle and players like that, what are some memories that way?
Yeah, I'd say one that sticks out specifically at Kyle. Ryan, I don't know if you remember how small I was my freshman year of high school. I was probably like 5'5", something like that, but weighed like nothing. I got thrown in to our sectional game against Warsaw at Northside Gym. I just remember Kyle's arms, I swear they touched the floor. He picked my pocket probably like 3 or 4 times, but that was a bad memory. But overall, like it was so fun. So, yeah.
No, I remember you getting into that game, and yeah, you seemed very, baby face at the time for sure, and young guy getting in. I was in that spot too. I remember I got thrown into a game when I was like a freshman, and my head was spinning. It seemed so fast and that type of thing, but I knew you were going to be a great player, and I was like, I'm glad we got this guy when he was a freshman or sophomore, because you were rolling by the time you were junior and senior. So
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy looking back because I had a similar moment too. We were playing Munster, who was number 2 in the state, and they ran a 1-3-1 zone. And so my freshman year, I'm a scrawny freshman. I have braces, so I have to wear a mouth guard and just have a messed up sports clip buzz cut, all that stuff. I got thrown in there, and I just remember like it was like looking back, I was like, it's just a basketball game. Like I played in plenty other bigger games, but man, in that moment as a 14-year-old kid, there's nothing more like when the student section starts screaming at you, calling you all sorts of names, man. It's just, there's nothing quite like it. But one thing that is pretty close to the historical Warsaw and Penn is the Crossroads League, which is, in my opinion, the greatest small college basketball conference in the country. It's an NAIA league that always has teams competing for a championship. We all 3 had the privilege of playing in it. Drew and I at Bethel, Kyle, you at Indiana Wesleyan. 2 programs that have been at the top of the Crossroads League for years and years with history and stuff like that. If you guys were to describe, we talked about describing Indiana high school basketball. If you guys were to describe Crossroads League and what kind of sets it apart, what are some words, what are some thoughts that come to mind? Kyle, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, Crossroads League is a hidden gem. A lot of people don't know about it. NAIA, a lot of people don't even know about NAIA. But the cool thing about the Crossroads League is pretty much all the teams are in northern Indiana besides there's one in Ohio and then one in Michigan. But all the teams are within, an hour, 2 hours at the most of each other. So that's pretty cool. People can travel to the games and watch, and it creates those rivalries. And, it's just intense. Like, guys played against each other in high school, and now they play against each other in college, and you're playing against the same dudes for years and years. And, I think that just ups the intensity of it for sure. But there's a lot of skill in the Crossroads League. If you go to the games, I think you're going to be like, wow, these guys know how to play. Like, it's probably not going to be the best athletes, but it's going to be guys who know how to play, can shoot the rock, unselfish basketball, just fun to watch for just someone who just loves the game. In its most pure form, I would say. So it's a little hidden gem. I loved playing there, 4 years in it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the Crossroads League loved you as well as your 4-time player. You made a league that most people would say is impossible, close to impossible to play in. You made it look somewhat easy as you win 4 times player of the year. But man, you're right. It's the basketball purist's dream. Like, you go to a game and sometimes you'll see a 7-footer or 6'10", but even those guys, like you guys had a couple big guys but they were smart players and worked hard. No one was too selfish. And if you don't, then you get exposed pretty quickly. That's absolutely right. Drew, what thoughts do you have, man?
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I think another thing that I saw, especially coming in only for my last 2 years, but like how smart the coaches were. I think like from the first time you play a team in the league to the second time, just like the adjustments and how they game plan against you was just, and how the players reacted to that as well was cool to see. And it was just a battle every night, and no matter the team, they were gonna be physical and give it your best shot. So, but it was fun. And like Kyle said, like athleticism, maybe not the highest, but like as far as skill and smarts and just toughness, like knowing how to play the game, like it was at very high level for sure.
Yeah. I would add on and say that reminded me, like, I mean, really in that league, any team can beat any team. Like the only team I never lost to was Taylor, which is great because I was rivals Taylor because we're 15 minutes away. So I can hang my hat on that. But every other team I lost to at least once. I think it just shows like how competitive the league is. You have to bring it every Tuesday or Saturday. So I always enjoyed that. Like no matter who you were playing, you knew it was going to be a battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys both bring up a good point of just the smarts of the players, but then, the coaches. I just remember, man, like you go up and you play against Coach Tonigal of IWU, and the first time you play them, it's going to be a completely different game plan as the second time. I mean, even coming out of the second half, like we would have to make adjustments here or there, and they just look completely different. They go from, I remember, I think it was my first time playing you guys. It was at Bethel. Kyle, you were a freshman at that point. You guys have a 7-foot transfer from Kansas, all this stuff, really skilled team, really good team. It might have been a top 10 matchup at that point in the season. And I just remember starting out, we had this game plan. Okay, don't let the freshman get going from the outside, all this stuff. Don't let the big guy get going. We're going to double that stuff. And all I remember is they went immediately. You guys went immediately, and you were like posting up. And we were not prepared for that whatsoever. We go into halftime, we're like making adjustments. Second half, you're doing exactly what we thought you would do and being on the perimeter and going. And it was just one of those things where it was just, I mean, and kudos to Ryan and the coaching staff at Bethel too. We were making adjustments on the fly, but and the coaching, there are some great coaches in the Crossroads League, guys whose names are in high level conversations on a consistent basis from year to year, but they continue to choose to stay where they are. And I think coaching makes a huge difference. And Kyle, you're right, man. Any night, like there was no off nights whatsoever, and you could get exposed really quickly. So any other thoughts, Crossroads League, any shout outs to any people or players or coaches in the Crossroads League that you want to get?
I mean, just touching along IWU, I just thought like when you went there, like just the established culture that started probably with you building that and people before that as well, Kyle, but just like the IM3 thing just always sticks out. Like you guys lived that out on the court, off the court. I thought that was really cool as not being on IWU's team, but just seeing it from where I was at.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll talk about that a little later in the podcast, but yeah, I think that's a cool thing about a lot of the Crossroads League schools is there is a culture at most schools, and faith is a big thing at most schools, which in a lot of conferences across the country, that's hard to find. So that's another special thing you could say about the Crossroads League.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part. And for me, I transferred to Bethel for my last 2 years, and I transferred looking because I felt called to ministry, was going to pursue being a pastor and stuff. And I thought my basketball career was over, so I could go pursue a ministry degree until Coach Lightfoot came to me and was like, "Hey, you can do that here, compete and play with guys that don't necessarily have a faith necessarily right now, but you could help pastor them." And it was honestly, Kyle, Drew, like it was great. I miss it. I miss being in the locker room with guys that have different backgrounds and perspectives and faith journeys that I have. Because now that I'm in a pastoral role, like you just don't have those conversations like you used to. And so, Drew, for you as a coach, like you get to have impact people that don't necessarily have the same faith as you have. And Kyle, you, as you're playing and whatnot, you get to consistently have those conversations as well. So don't take those for granted, because now that I'm out of it, I miss it, man. But you're right. Faith was a big part with most of the schools there too. And each team had players would change, but the culture and the system and the way that they played always stayed the same, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, we talked enough about the Crossroads League. We're all big fans. If you haven't watched Crossroads League basketball, watch some Crossroads League basketball. It's great. We're going to switch it up into some college football, talk really quickly about some college football shout outs from this past week, and then go into some picks. Drew had a great week picking last week, almost is up to catching me. So we need a good week this week for you Ryan fans out there so that Drew does not catch me. But we'll start with our college football shout outs. Drew, who is a player or a team that you want to give a shout out to? And then Kyle will go to you after Drew.
Yeah, I got to shout out my Michigan Wolverines, specifically Khalil Mullins, taking down USC. That game was a crazy game, but I thought it was Khalil Mullins, that huge run, like spinning off tackles. Just shout out the Wolverines for sure.
There you go, Kyle. Who's your shout out?
Indiana football. I'm a big IU fan, just was raised that way. So it's crazy giving a shout out to Indiana football, but that's what I got to do. 4-0, I think, for the first time in a long, long time for a new head coach. So Signetti has things rolling there, and it's fun to watch. Like I'm excited to watch it every Saturday, and I can't tell you the last time it's been like that. So I'm excited for it. I'm going to the IU Nebraska game October 19th in a few weeks, which should be electric.
There you go, folks. So if you want an autograph from Kyle Mangas, make sure you get some tickets to the IU Nebraska game. No, they look good, man. They look like a good football team. Michigan, Drew, obviously, they're looking pretty good. But IU, we had Connor Schneider, former Indiana football defensive lineman, on the podcast a couple episodes ago. And he tried to warn us. He told us. And so IU football is back. And better than ever. My shout out is to Illinois. I had not watched an Illinois football game this year. They played on Friday night. We had talked to Ben earlier that week, and so I decided to watch it. They're a fun team to watch. Good defensive presence there from Coach Billema, and fun team to watch. So shout out to Illinois. And now we're going to go into our game picks. Kyle, we're going to have you kind of get us started with the Oklahoma State at Kansas State game. Kansas State is 6-point favorites. Going up against Oklahoma State. Who you got in this one?
I'll take Oklahoma State. I have some family that went to that school, so I have a little bias there. But, I don't know why. I've just always liked Oklahoma State as a school, and I'm going for them.
There you go. That's a good reason. Drew, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Kansas State. I really like their quarterback. I think his confidence and just how he carries himself kind of has that swagger. I think, especially at home, he'll be able to shine, I think.
There you go. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. I think we've had Oklahoma State picked in like 2 or 3 times since we've launched this podcast, and I picked Oklahoma State every time just because Mike Gundy, their coach, I like he's growing the mullet back out. And so maybe, Kyle, you can talk to Coach Tonigal about growing a mullet out as well. Yeah. Next game, Drew, we'll start with you. Number 15, Louisville at Notre Dame here in South Bend. Notre Dame opening up as 6.5-point favorites. Drew, who you got in this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Notre Dame. They've been kind of up and down, but I think at home, the South Bend crowd's gonna bring it, and I think that's gonna help the Irish out.
There you go, Kyle.
Yeah, I'll go with the Irish. They lost to these guys last year, so I don't see it happening 2 years in a row. And, I think Notre Dame is refocused now, and Freeman's going to get them rolling again.
There you go. I'll just go with Notre Dame as well. My wife's a Notre Dame fan. My mother-in-law works in Notre Dame, and so I'll go with the Irish. I want to see Coach Freeman do well. All right, next, this one is near and dear to my heart because it is where I got my master's from. Liberty at Appalachian State. Liberty is 3.5-point favorites on the road. I'll go first. I'm picking Liberty. Liberty is going to go undefeated this year, make it into the playoff, and so you can't go undefeated if you lose to Appalachian State. So I'm going Liberty. Kyle, who you got?
Yeah, I'll take Liberty too. Seems like they've built a pretty good football program there, and I was checking their box scores and stuff from their most recent games, and it seems like they just dominate. So I'll go with the Liberty Flames.
They really do. And Kyle, I don't want to take credit, but similar to you at Indiana Wesleyan, by the time I was at Liberty, they just started winning a ton of football games. Granted, I had nothing to do with the football program, but I was basically the Kyle Mangas of Liberty football. So, Drew, who you got in this one?
Yeah, I got Liberty as well. I think it'll be a close one with it being at App State, but Liberty's offense and their quarterback, they're fun to watch.
All right, good job, boys. It scares me that we all picked Liberty, but we'll take it. Next, we got North Carolina at Duke, the battle of basketball programs. But Duke, I believe they're undefeated, opening up at 2.5-point favorites at home against a North Carolina team that just gave up 70 points to James Madison. Kyle, who you got in this one, UNC or Duke?
Yeah, giving up 70 points to James Madison. I know James Madison has been good recently, but, IU took their coach now. So I can't speak too much how good they are now. But, I think I'll have to take Duke just undefeated. And North Carolina's, on their heels a little bit, it seems like. So I'll go with Duke.
There you go. Drew, who you got?
I got Duke as well, not only because I like their basketball program, but same reasons as well.
Yeah, just so you listeners know, Drew became a fan of the Duke basketball program because I have been a fan of the North Carolina basketball program since I was born and saw highlights of MJ playing there. And so I'm going with North Carolina. We had our quarterback got hurt, so they're trying to establish who the quarterback is going to be moving forward, whether they play the redshirt freshman or the fifth-year senior. They scored 50 points. So they gave up 70. They scored 50, and so maybe they'll step it up on defense a little bit this next game. I'm going with the Tar Heels. And now we got the big one, number 2, Georgia at number 4, Alabama. Georgia opened up as 2-point favorites last time I checked. Drew, we'll start with you. Who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Alabama. I think with it being at home, it's big for them. But I think it's a big game for Jalen Milroe. I think it's an opportunity for him to kind of show that he's learned from mistakes from last year and kind of apply that experience and make some big plays.
All right, Kyle, what about you, man?
Yeah, this one's so hard. I feel like Georgia's on a 42-game regular season winning streak, but they had that close call last week, so people were kind of counting them out. It's so hard, but I think I am going to go Alabama. Home field advantage in the SEC. I've heard how tough that is, and yeah, I like Milroe too. Just athletic playmaker, make some big plays for him, and I think the crowd will help too.
Yeah, it's tough to pick against Kalen DeBoer, former Indiana offensive coordinator there when he was there with Michael Penix, and he's won a lot of football games. But I'm going with the Georgia Bulldogs. I think that I saw some conspiracy theories, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Someone said on some social media that Georgia intentionally played a close game last week to try to throw off Alabama. Do you guys think there's any validity? Kyle, when you were at Indiana Wesleyan and you guys were number 1 the entire season, did you guys ever intentionally play a close game with us, Bethel, so that Merriam would think you guys were off or something like that?
I can't say we've done that. That would be very risky to do. Playing down there in the SEC, so hard time believing that.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll still go with Georgia. So those were 5 picks. We're going to have a bonus pick this time because we have an Indiana Wesleyan legend. Indiana Wesleyan in NAIA football is going to Illinois, St. Francis of Illinois. It's number 6 IWU, who has won every game by just about 50 points each time. Their only loss is to a Division I opponent, Valparaiso. They are going to St. Francis of Illinois. Kyle, who are you taking in this one?
Going with IWU. They built quite the football program for sure. Football program started there when I was a freshman, so it was pretty cool to see that that place and that field come alive and the culture they've built and just how fast they've built up their team and their program, and they're good every year now. They just came off a deep playoff run last year, so easily going with IWU here.
There you go. What were Saturdays like at Iowa once they got the football program going?
It was so cool. It of course doesn't feel like a Big Ten tailgate, but we would have a little tailgate like that outside. Host the recruits, things like that. You get the field passes. Pretty cool stadium for sure there. That's just it's cool. It feels like just added to the college experience there. Just having a football team and something to do on Saturdays. Go root for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome. Drew, who are you taking in this one?
Taking IWU as well, man, for Kyle.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll all take IWU in this one. It hurts us to say it, but we'll take IWU, Kyle.
Yeah.
All right. As we wrap up a little bit of our sports talk, we wanted to give some shout-outs to some NFL teams or players as well. So Drew, is your NFL shout-out for this week?
I just want to shout out Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I thought they looked really good. Josh Allen is making big plays like he usually does. I'm hoping he gets over the hump. I feel like every year he gets to that point and then loses. So maybe this year he'll be able to win that big game.
There you go. Kyle, you got an NFL shout-out for this week?
Yeah, I'm a huge Colts fan, so got their first win of the season. We haven't played the prettiest football so far, I would say, but maybe this will give us some momentum and let Richardson kind of settle in and catch their groove.
There you go. They're a fun team to watch for sure.
Yeah.
My shout out is the Minnesota Vikings, or not the Minnesota Vikings. I'm a Lions fan. The Pittsburgh Steelers, because I said that they were going to win their division or finish top 2, and they're currently undefeated. So ESPN, you can hit my line whenever you want. because that was that. So we'll head into the next aspect of our sports talk, where we're going to be asking Kyle some questions about how sports has impacted him. And so, Kyle, the first question that we want to ask you is, how has the game of basketball shaped the man that you are today? Obviously, you're still a professional basketball player, but how has it, growing up with it, high school, college, all that stuff, how has the game of basketball shaped the man that you are today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's had such an influence on me. I mean, just starting with just work ethic and getting better at something, just having that drive every day, and learning how to talk to people and have teamwork and communicate. I would say a big one is not pleasing other people, but learning to please God instead of others, and not let the opinions of others define you is a huge one. All of those reasons, I would say basketball helped lead me to Indiana Wesleyan, which, I mean, that place changed my life, just helped me make my faith my own. So it's helped me, I mean, make a living too. I can say that. Just being a professional basketball player, fortunate to do that right now. So, it has had such a positive impact on my life.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And yeah, obviously you as a basketball player, Drew and I have talked a lot about how good you are, but just the person that you are, I mean, now the husband that you are, congratulations, newly married, all this stuff. Like, that's awesome to hear the impact that it's had on you. Drew, anything to add?
Yeah, no, like you said, I mean, you and I, Ryan, have talked about it, but just how cool Kyle carries himself, and just you can tell he's just a genuine, nice guy, and he's competitive. He's got that fiery spirit. So it's just cool to see how you've really lived out your faith, and it's shown on the basketball court for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah. So to that note, Kyle, how have you been able to blend both sports and your love for basketball and your competitiveness and your skill and your faith as well?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned in my last answer, I went to Indiana Wesleyan, and there, I mean, I was able, alongside 15 other guys and some coaches, to pursue God together, but also play high level basketball at the same time. And like, it can't get much better than that, honestly. So those years were some of the best of my life. Now I think it's my turn, now that I left that place, to go into the real world. I'm still playing basketball, have been overseas in Europe, and now back here in the States to, now go into locker rooms like you mentioned earlier, where, guys don't have the same backgrounds, don't have the same beliefs as me. And how can I be a light to them? I think, the way that I talk should be different, and the way that I play on the court, am I giving glory to myself, or am I giving glory to God? All those things can be different, and just show other people our faith. So that's something I'm really trying to do right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's cool to hear you mention the impact IWU's had on you. I would love to know, and I didn't put this, so if you're like, hey, we can cut this if you want. How did you end up at Indiana Wesleyan? Because obviously you were a really good high school player, an Indiana All-Star. So how did you end up at IWU?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't highly recruited at all, which, at the time, I think it gave me a chip on my shoulder, and I questioned a little bit. But then a school came along, Indiana Wesleyan, pretty early on, and fell in love with it. The coaching staff would go on visits there, and I was like, wow, like there's something different going on here. And I felt God was calling me to a greater purpose. And I was like, this is the place I'm supposed to be. So I committed there pretty early, before my senior year even, and was set on going there. And, like I said, part of me was like, man, like I would love to go to like an IU or something like that. But on the other hand, I was like, man, like I have a great fit for me right here, a small college, where there still is high level basketball being played, but it's a place where people care about you as a person and more than a basketball player. And I was like, this is right down the road for me. So it was everything I, had ever been looking for, and finally realized that. And I was like, this is the place for me.
That's awesome. It's awesome to hear. And I remember there was an article, I think the Indy Star, someone posted that the best college basketball player in the state of Indiana was not at IU, Purdue, or Notre Dame, or it was at Indiana Wesleyan. And it was an article all about you and Coach Tonigal. And so if you ever needed that chip on your shoulder, like, oh, I wish I could, like, you could have, man. You were a really good player. And so it was cool to see you stick it out at IU, even though I'd be on the wrong side of that for a little bit.
Yeah, appreciate that.
What is we asked Ben this and Drew this last time. What are some advice you would give to younger athletes who might look up to you, might want to get to where you're at or get to where you're going, what's some advice you would give to them?
Yeah, I would say navigating the world today as a young athlete, especially young Christian athletes, pretty difficult. Just with so much that we have going on, I would say the biggest thing is to not let your identity be consumed in your sport, if it's basketball or whatever your sport is. With social media, with the highlight tapes, with just so much you see. Just you have to have a trainer, you have to have the AAU team, all that stuff. Like, it's okay to be different and take your own route. And I would encourage guys to first be solid in their faith. Basketball brings so many highs and lows. There's going to be great games and days where you produce stats and things like that, and there's going to be days where you lose and don't play well. And there's highs and lows of basketball, and if you just live by those, like, you're going to end up disappointed. But if you build those solid habits and have that foundation in Jesus, like, that's going to leave you satisfied. That's going to leave you steady. If you start there, then all that other stuff will follow. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Drew, you got anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think young athletes should listen to that advice, because this guy knows what he's doing. I think, Kyle, for young athletes, I feel like they're so want to get in the gym, want to get better, but spend all that time so focused on it. Where would you say, or what's something you've done to kind of keep that balance of, all right, I'm going to work hard, stay in the gym, get all these reps in, but I'm going to keep faith above all of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was definitely one of those guys as a high schooler. Like, you just get sucked into the world I was talking about of, you just have to be a basketball player 100% of the time, because, you have to get a scholarship offer and you have to pursue your dreams. But it's great to have a balance in your life, and that starts with the people around you. Like, are the people around you do they only see you as a basketball player, or do they see you as more? Do they see you as, a brother, a friend, a son, a brother in Christ? That's the biggest one, honestly. So it's having that balance. It's finding hobbies and passions outside your sport is big. That's something I try to do. And, not just have basketball that switch on 100% of the time. Like, you're going to be drained. It's going to leave you feeling empty. So yeah, all those things together.
Awesome. Well, we'll head into our next section. Thank you, Kyle, for sharing. If you get nothing else from this, listen to that past few minutes that we just had where Kyle was dropping some wisdom, because it's worth a lot of money. But the next section we're going to be talking about is leadership, and we're going to be diving into a quote from Jack Welch. And this is the quote. It says, "Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others." Drew, when you hear that quote, what are some initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's something we've actually been talking about with our players. As a college basketball coach now, our head coach talks about just really when things aren't going your way, when things are going bad, how can you focus on others? And I think that helps not only like with basketball to kind of, all right, that problem might not be as big as I think it is in the moment, but it also uplifts people, and other people who maybe don't have that leadership role see that and want to do that as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Kyle, you have any thoughts on that quote?
Yeah, that's a great word, Drew. I'll add on and just say, I keep bringing up IWU, but I learned so much at that place. One thing we talked about there, and I think the world today says, like, it's all about you. What can you get? How can you grow? But one thing we talked about there was, during your 4 years there, 1 year, however long you were there, your growth and success was measured by the growth and success of others. So how can you bring people along with you, instead of leaving people in the dust and trying to gain just power for yourself? Like, how can you pour into someone else? How can you learn their story and bring them along? And, I think it says that in Philippians, like, giving up your own selfish interest and even putting like other people's interest before your own. And that's so countercultural, but trying to do that, like, I'm not perfect at that. No one's perfect at that. But if we can think about that a lot more often, then it's going to help our leadership a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was evident, Kyle, within the culture at IWU that the coaching staff has built there. I would ask you, not that anything against like the Mad Ants or any professional team you've been on, but now that you're entering into different cultures, team cultures, like how do you still keep that mindset, even though maybe not all of your other teammates have the same mindset necessarily?
It's a lot harder. And once you get to the professional level, like you're doing it as a job too, which changes the game in so many ways. But as Christian athletes, we're called to be different, and we don't have to do it like the rest of the world. Like, we can encourage guys and want to see our teammates do well, even if we're not getting what we want at times, even if we're not getting the minutes or the role, or like in the workplace, if you're not getting the promotion that you want, it's okay to want to see other people do well. I think that can give you so much more joy every day, caring about other people, wanting to see them do well. I want to see my teammates do well. There's a lot of professional basketball teams and players where jealousy is just right in the middle of the team. This guy's getting this, I deserve that. So that's something I've really tried to work on the last 3 years I've been a pro.
All right, so now we got a couple of questions, Kyle, that we have for you. Drew and I will add our 2 cents if it's needed. But through your journey, how have you found ways to lead, regardless of your position or status in the team or title? Through your journey, how have you done that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't matter, if you're the president or the janitor. It doesn't matter if you're the captain of a team, a senior, a freshman. Like, everyone can lead in some way, and I think calling that out of others is important. Like, one thing I've had to learn is naturally I feel like I lead by my actions. I'm a fairly quiet guy, but I remember as a freshman, I was so quiet, and our seniors came to me and they did it in a loving and encouraging way. But they're like, Kyle, we need you to use your voice. Like, it helps get guys going. Like, you never know what you could say that could impact someone. So that's, whether you're wherever you are on the totem pole, I think find your gift of leadership is important, and don't be afraid to use your voice and challenge other people.
Absolutely. Is there anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I had a similar experience. I struggled using my voice for a while on the court as well. And I guys tell me, like, we need that from you. And it takes a boldness, kind of just stepping out of yourself, but it's huge once you do it, for sure.
So today, Kyle, what is something that you're learning about leadership that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I recently got married, so like learning how to be a leader in the household, that's big as a Christian man, and I'm definitely learning a lot about it. Just, it's a new season of life, and Drew, you just got married this summer too, right? So you're probably learning the same thing. Just centering your marriage around Christ, having patience at all times, loving your spouse unconditionally. All those things, probably the biggest thing. It's not all about basketball for me. So that's the biggest way I'm learning.
Yeah, that's awesome. We asked you, Kyle, for some leadership advice, like what you're learning. You're talking about being a great husband. So that again, just shows how the type of person that you are. Drew, anything you want to add? Anything you're learning from leadership?
No, that was really good. I think I'm similar position as Kyle. So like learning not only to lead as a basketball player or me as a basketball coach, but as a husband as well. Like that's more important than the basketball stuff. And sometimes it's easy to get caught up in, okay, I got to lead basketball, but kind of put that to the side. But that's got to be most important for sure.
Absolutely. I just noticed we've been at this thing for about 50 minutes. Kyle, I apologize for taking so much of your time, but this is I don't want this to end. This is a fun conversation, man. Now's a fun time to just give some shout out. Who are some leaders that have shaped you, Kyle, that you just love to show your gratitude, express that type of stuff for?
Yeah, I'll go my college coaches. I keep giving IWU shout outs, but Greg Tonigal and Jeff Clark, just the culture they built at Indiana Wesleyan, and I Am Third, like Drew mentioned. It's become known, across the state and country today, just putting God first, others second, and yourselves third. And, that place is so awesome because, whereas a lot of other college programs in all sports, they only care about you. I mean, a lot of different places will only care about you, as a piece of a business and what you can produce. They're there to, help guys like me and so many others grow up to be, great fathers and husbands and leaders in the community, which is big. I mean, like I mentioned, I think whether it's in the workplace or, in a college program, a lot of coaches, say, what can this player, what can this person, what can they give to me? What can I get out of them? But I think those guys do it so differently, Tonagel and Clark. And they say, how can I point this guy to Jesus and what can I do for them? And, I think that's why they've built the culture they have today, and it leads on to the court too, for sure.
Yeah, two incredible we talk about leaders, two incredible leaders. One quick thing about each of them. One, I never knew until after I graduated from Bethel and was in ministry that Coach Clark can preach. I've come across a couple of his sermons online, and I mean, as a pastor, he's one of the guys. He has a couple of them that I have on replay that I'll listen to when I need some motivation and inspiration and stuff. And so,
he officiated my wedding. Actually, he
really
did my premarital counseling with me and my wife Karen. So, I mean, I'm still I'm 4 years out, but still really close with both those guys. So, yeah, you're spot on with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, they're incredible. And then Coach Tonagel, for whatever reason, we've only had a few conversations post, when I was in high school and stuff. But every time we've had a conversation, it's turned into deep theological conversation. And he's pursuing his doctorate right now or his master's. He's a genius, not only on the court, but within the word, which is you would not necessarily know that when you see his record and the teams that he puts out on the court, that you'd think he's all basketball. No, the guy's pursuing a degree in theology, and he can talk theology with the best of them. And so he's, just two really unique guys that have humbled themselves to stay where they're at, because they both probably have plenty of opportunities to go where, and maybe they will eventually, but really cool to see the leadership that they have and the impact they've had on people like you, Kyle. Drew, any thoughts on the two of them?
No, they're great guys. I got the privilege of getting recruited by them a little bit, and just getting to know their hearts and kind of why they were doing what they did was just really cool, because this world needs more of that. So they're awesome dudes for sure, and I'm glad to see that they're in this industry, because we need people like them for sure.
Man, Coach Draben is going to be so mad at me for having Kyle on the podcast and talking so much.
I believe Draben and Tonagel were teammates, right, at Valpo, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, they actually in high school.
That's what it was, high school.
Yeah, at LaPorte. I think Draben was a freshman, Tonagel senior or something. He looked up to him quite a bit, and so it's fun to see those two battle now and the coaching ranks in the Crossroads League.
Yeah.
So everything Kyle said about IWU, he actually meant about Bethel. So if you're a recruit listening to this, I'm just kidding. That's awesome. Shout out to everyone in the Crossroads League. So we're going to be wrapping up here now. Anything else either of you guys want to add? Faith, sports, leadership, anything you meant to say, you forgot to say, anything you want to just add as we're closing out nearing an hour here on this podcast?
No, I just want to add real quick, Kyle, it's been awesome watching you. You've kind of been a role model for me growing up and trying to become a great basketball player, but a great person as well. So just watching how you carry yourself was huge for me, and I appreciate advice you've given me, and I'm excited to watch where your journey goes for sure, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've followed your career from afar too, and after I graduated from Warsaw, you were killing at Penn, and then you end up back in the Crossroads League, so that was pretty cool. And yeah, it was awesome to always watch you get buckets. But I didn't know you personally that much, but I could tell basketball wasn't the end all be all for you, that your faith was so important to you and family and that type of thing for both of you guys. And I think that's so cool. And that's the reason why you're doing this podcast. There are so many more things in life that are important to you than sports. We love sports, but it's not the most important thing. So I think this is really cool. Two brothers talking, being vulnerable. There's not a lot of that going on in the world right now. So encourage you guys to keep doing it, keep going for it. I'll be listening.
Thank you so much, man. We appreciate that. And as Drew's older brother, I'll just add this again. I'm sorry. This is such a long podcast. We'll listen to it on double time. It's fine. Drew was a psychotic basketball freak since he was like little in diapers. And as his older brother, I would tell him, man, there's so much more. Like, and then when I hit the low point of my life, I ended up pursuing Christ and pursuing ministry, like trying to share that with him, and it would fall almost upon death. Like he knew what I was saying, he knew what to respond. But it's people like you, Kyle, and honestly, like the impact you had, the texts that you guys exchange and whatnot, that like, I agree. I saw a complete shift in him, and it wasn't just the transfer that he made. It wasn't just the girl that he ends up marrying, but no, it was people like you who he saw compete at the highest level, achieve the success that he wanted to succeed, but keeping his priorities in check. It made me really proud of who he is as a man. And that's all. And a lot of thanks go to you, Kyle, and people like you. So thank you, man. Thanks for the impact you have. Keep impacting. Keep at it. Whether the shot's falling or not, whether you're playing for the Detroit Pistons, bringing home a championship to my Pistons, or not, man. Like you're killing it, and you're representing Indiana basketball well. You're representing the Crossroads League well, and you're representing like the body of Christ really well, dude. So I'm proud of you, and excited to see how you continue on.
Yeah, I appreciate that, dude. That means the world. It's been a great convo. Like you said, we're on here an hour, but it's felt like 15 minutes.
Absolutely. And so with that, thank you so much for listening. If you're still listening in, kudos to you. Well done. On behalf of Drew, on behalf of Kyle and myself, thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a great week, and just go be a light wherever you're going. Thanks, friends.